So the trailer for the new Assassin's Creed game has just dropped, which is Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's going to be coming out at the end of the year, and the internet is losing their mind over it. I figured I'd give my 2 cents on this and the controversy as someone that does a lot of Japanese history videos on this channel, and on occasion will also cover video game news. I figured I would give my thoughts. Now, a lot of people have been waiting for this game, this theme, this scenario, and this setting, this time period for a long time. Japanese medieval history, feudal Japan, is something that people have been wanting to see in Assassin's Creed for many years. And I don't know why they haven't done this sooner. It is probably actually really bad timing to have waited to do this after the release of Ghost of Tsushima. There's already people saying that Assassin's Creed Shadows will be the poor man's Ghost of Tsushima. So I don't know why they took so long to decide to do this, because it's something that people have been asking for a long time. With that said, a lot of us, myself included, are very excited for it. The game is casting as the main protagonist both a man and a woman, which I thought was cool. It's going back to that Assassin's Creed Syndicate vibe where you play as two characters, both a female and a male character. The female character is a ninja, and the male character is a samurai. Now, where is the controversy happening here? So let me talk first about the female character, which is less of the controversy, but a lot of people are saying that this character is going to be historically inaccurate, that it should have been a man. If it was a ninja, it would have been a man. Now, that is not necessarily true. I don't know that, and you don't know that. Nobody knows that, because nobody really knows if ninja even exists. It is a subject that is highly debated. A lot of historians don't believe that ninja even existed. But if we are going to take the historical definition of what most people believe that ninjas are, they are descendants from the province of Iga. Those are the Iga ninja warriors, and that was a small province with not that many warriors, and they did employ the use of very unconventional weapons like bombs, and they were notorious force multipliers with a lot of secrets like poisons, gas, bombs, and things like that. I don't think it's far-fetched that the protagonist could have been a woman. I don't think it's far-fetched that they would have employed the service of female warriors, especially because they lacked the numbers. I don't think it's far-fetched at all, and anyone that says that that's historically inaccurate doesn't know what they're talking about, because we don't even know if the story of ninjas in general even exists. We don't know that they exist. So it is cool that they didn't go with a historic figure for that. It is a fictitious character. I think that if they had chosen like the male character to actually use a historic figure, it would have been much cooler to have seen somebody like Hanzo, who is the most famous ninja in Japanese history, or maybe Fumiko Taro, who's his arch nemesis. A lot of people, and the theory is that Fumiko Taro is actually the ninja that killed Hattori Hanzo. It would have been really cool to have that assassin against assassin dynamic. You play as one of the characters and the other one is your arch nemesis. I think that could have been a really cool thing. I do hope we still see at least Hanzo in some capacity, as we often will see historic characters like Leonardo da Vinci as part of the supporting cast. I hope we do see Hanzo, because he's one of the most badass characters in Japanese history. I hope he does make an appearance. Even if he's not a protagonist, I hope he makes an appearance in some way, because he is a really cool character. Maybe he trains our protagonist. That would be very cool. Now, people seem to be really upset about the male protagonist. Why? Because he is a black samurai. Now, a lot of people have since done their research, and they've realized that this character did in fact exist. His name is Yasuke. He is known as the only quote-unquote black samurai in Japanese history. Now, first thing I will reinforce that, and I will say I don't know much about Yasuke's history. That's something that I'd like to make a video on and actually do proper extensive research on. But we do know in fact that he existed, and he was a retainer that was employed under Oda Nobunaga. So that is fact. Oda Nobunaga is a very interesting character, a very interesting daimyo in Japanese history. He is notorious for employing people that would normally not be employed under his service. He often employed peasants. He employed the only black man in Japan under his service. He was the first daimyo to make effective use of the matchlocks to actually use guns in battle. He developed a lot of guerrilla warfare tactics and made use of them at a time where it was very unconventional. So Oda Nobunaga is quite an interesting man, and this character Yasuke did in fact exist. Now, I don't like him as a choice of character and of casting, perhaps not for the same reason that most people seem to not like him. A lot of people seem to be saying that this was done just for the sake of checking boxes, right? Black male protagonist, check. Female protagonist, check. I think that perhaps this was some of the reason. They did want to check some boxes. They wanted to put some of these characters in there. But I think that ultimately they were trying to make their game unique and stand out. Unfortunately, this game will keep getting compared to Ghost of Tsushima. Perhaps casting a black samurai perhaps casting this character was a way to try in their head to make the game more unique and different. I don't necessarily think that it was just for the sake of diversity, because him being Japanese, I think would have been diverse too, right? It's not a white guy. But again, I think they were just trying to be, I think what they were really trying to do is make it unique. They were trying to be different. The problem I have with the casting of this character is because particularly Yasuke, he doesn't have a very flattering history. If this was based on William Adams, the white samurai who was the British gentleman that ended up in Japan and served, that would have been an interesting choice of character, because he does have a legacy, right? He goes on to marry into a samurai family, be granted land, have kids. He does have history behind him, and he is a notorious character, an important character in Japanese history, who even has a memorial and a burial made in his name. That is a character of importance. We've seen him depicted in other games like Neo, for example. A lot of people were saying, well, why can you have the white guy and you can't have the black guy? And that's where I come in and I say I don't have a problem with it being a black guy. If there were other black samurai that had interesting and compelling story, or if Yasuke had interesting and compelling history behind him, that would have been a good casting choice as well. And I do think it could have made the game unique in its own way. I don't have that big of a problem with it. The problem I have is that Yasuke in particular, his story is not very flattering, and I don't think it's one that we should necessarily glorify. Yasuke was a slave that came under service of Oda Nobunaga, and their first interaction was Oda Nobunaga tried to wash him because he thought his skin was dark because he was dirty. And as he tried to wash this guy and realized obviously that dirt wasn't coming out, that this was his skin, he became fascinated with the guy. Now obviously Oda Nobunaga did like him and did value him in some way because he kept him around a lot and made him an actual retainer. The problem is that Oda Nobunaga kept him around for the wrong reasons. He kept him around for the sake of circus. This wasn't somebody that was recognized for their insane skill, that was a formidable warrior in battle, that accomplished a lot of historically significant things. This was someone that was kept around just for the sake of show and circus. And I don't think it's really cool to glorify that or even choose to cast this character, not just because he's not that interesting, but it's not quite a very flattering history to be highlighting. So that's more my problem with it. I know a lot of people wanted it to be also a fictional Japanese man. It is weird because it does break from the traditional mode of what Assassin's Creed has been doing. They always use fictional characters that do belong to that country and region. So we had Assassin's Creed Origins, which was set in Egypt and Africa, so we did have a black man as the protagonist. We had Ezio in Italy, it was an Italian man. We had a French man in France, right? So it is weird that they chose to use a historic character for this game in general to begin with, and then why pick specifically the black samurai that has such an unflattering history behind him? It is certainly a weird choice, and we've never had a Japanese male protagonist in Assassin's Creed in general, so I do think that that would have been cooler to stick to that story. I think Yasuke would have been a cool, interesting supporting character to show up in the story. He could have been like Leonardo da Vinci and show up maybe like Hanzo will show up in a side character mission or as a complementing supporting character in the story. But as a protagonist, it is weird because even if they did use another historic figure like a white man, like anybody that looked like any other thing, or even a Japanese historic figure, it would be a little weird because they never use historic figures as the protagonist. So why did they choose to do that now? It does seem suspicious. It does seem weird. It does seem like they're checking boxes. And why is a Japanese male not good enough? That kind of begs the question. Again, I don't think they went with malicious intent. I don't think they're saying that Japanese males aren't good enough to be the protagonist. I think they were just trying to be unique and differentiate themselves from Ghost of Tsushima and other games that have done that already. With that said, I don't think that was a good character to choose. And you may say, well, there aren't any other black samurai to choose from. Then don't use it. Don't choose it altogether, because this guy doesn't have a very appealing, compelling, or flattering history, and it's kind of a fucked up story to be even highlighting him as a protagonist. So that tends to be more my problem with the casting of the characters. Ultimately, I hope for the best. I genuinely hope the best for this game. I don't expect the game to be the best, unfortunately, knowing Ubisoft and what they've done in the last few years of Assassin's Creed, but I am a longtime fan of the franchise. I'm not a fan of Ubisoft. But I am a big fan of Assassin's Creed, and this is a historic setting that I've been waiting for a long time, and I'm very excited about. At the end of the day, if the gameplay is good, nobody's going to care about this. At the end of the day, if the game is good, the game is good. I am hoping it's good, and perhaps we don't just stick with these characters for the entire series of games that might come from this historic setting. I hope that they do in fact use other more interesting historic figures like Hattori Hanzo, or they do create Japanese fictional characters in general for the following sequences. They realize that this was a mistake and they kind of move on from it for the next games. But even if they don't, again, gameplay is king. If the game is good, the game is good. Nobody will care about any of this. I am hopeful. I wish for the best for this game. Unfortunately, I think it will be very hard to break away from the shadow that Ghost of Tsushima will cast over this game, but I do hope for the best for it. I wish it the best, and I hope it's a good game. Can you imagine, though, how cool it would have been to have played as Hanzo? What a missed opportunity.